I'll call the meeting to order. We could have a roll call whenever you're ready.
Mr. Ackerson? Ms. Billman? Here. Mr. Fell?
Here.
Mr. Fitch?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins? Ms. Vidrago?
Here.
Mr. Trail? Mr. Turner? Ms. Yu?
Here.
We have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? We have two sets of minutes now for approval. The minutes of the regular meeting from February 22nd, 2018 and March 8th, 2018. Do we have any motions? We'll approve them both. Let's approve them separately because I discussed this with one of the commissioners, and I think there's going to be a change to the February 22nd one. So let's have a motion on that first. Motion by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Trail. Any changes to the minutes?
March 8th was not, February 22nd was our big marathon, right?
Right.
Yeah. Excuse me. I move to change the wording on page 9. Says, Ms. Ouedraogo commented that if the Plan Commission has hesitations because they are thinking about the public good, they need to keep in mind that the public has spoken when they voted, and the vote was to not support the Champaign County continuing the operation of the nursing home. I'd like to insert financially in front of support and remove continuing the operation of, so that now it reads when they voted and the vote was not to it was to not financially support the Champaign County nursing home.
Is that all right? All right. Any other changes? We'll do this on a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Thank you. Those opposed? The minutes are approved as amended. Now for the March 8th minutes. Any changes to these minutes? You're right. I got out of order. Any motions on the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
Mr. Fell. Second. Mr. Trail, second. Now are there any changes? Nope. All right, we'll have a voice vote on these as well. All those in favor of approving the March 8th minutes? Aye. Those opposed? Those minutes are approved. Do we have any communications? We have two continued public hearings. We have plan case number 2331T18, a request by the zoning administrator to amend the zoning ordinance to modify who may submit an application for various permits and approvals. That case is continued to the April 19th, 2018 Plan Commission. We also have plan case 2339T18, application by the zoning administrator to amend the zoning ordinance to combine the mixed office residential Development Review Board and the Design Review Board. That case is also continued to the April 19th, 2018 Plan Commission meeting. We have no old business. We do have a new public hearing. This is Plan Case 2341 SU18, a request by Tatman Family LLC on behalf of First Busey Trust and Investment Company as trustee under the provisions of the trust agreement dated the 6th day of August 1985, known as Trust Number 1-2125, for a special use permit to operate a medical clinic at 520 North Cunningham Avenue in the B3 General Business Zoning District. Mr. Ricci.
Good evening, everyone. I am sitting in for Mr. Marks this evening to present this case, and appreciate your attention. Tatman Family LLC, on behalf of the owner, has requested a special use permit to allow a medical clinic on the property at 520 North Cunningham Avenue. According to the Urbana zoning ordinance, a medical clinic is permitted with a special use permit in the B3 General Business Zoning District. The subject Property is a half-acre vacant parcel, zoned B3 General Business, located at the intersection of North Cunningham Avenue and East Park Street. Exhibit A shows this well. It is surrounded by other commercial uses, a tavern to the north, 5 Points Commerce Center Shopping Mall to the east, Walgreens Pharmacy to the south, and an Arby's fast food restaurant across Cunningham Avenue to the west. Exhibit B illustrates that all of these areas are zoned B3 General Business as shown in the chart of uses, and comprehensive plan designations is in the staff report, and that shows that in Exhibit C, all of these areas are designated for future use of regional business. Again, the proposed use is a medical clinic that would provide outpatient primary medical care. The clinic would operate with normal business hours throughout the daytime and early evening. Exhibit D shows that the building would be approximately 3,300 square feet and would be located on the northeast portion of the subject property with a 13 parking lot to the south of it on the property. The building itself is set back 50 feet from Cunningham Avenue to comply with an existing covenant with Walgreens Pharmacy, and that's this setback line shown here. The applicant, in addition to the 13 motor vehicle spaces, would provide 2 bicycle parking spaces as required by the ordinance. 1 parking space at the northwest corner does encroach into the required front yard setback along Cunningham Avenue, and to allow that encroachment, they're going to provide the required landscape buffer of 1 tree and 3 shrubs to screen that. Vehicle access would be through a private drive from Park Street here along the east property line, and also in through a Walgreens parking lot. We show a dumpster and recycling enclosure here, which is accessible either from inside the parking lot. It can also be accessed on coming down through the private drive of this unnamed private drive. The staff report summarizes how the proposed use meets the special use criteria. First, the proposed use is conducive to the public convenience at that location, in that a medical clinic is appropriate for a busy commercial corridor such as Cunningham Avenue. The public may also find it convenient to have a medical clinic next to a pharmacy. Second, the proposed use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that it will not be unreasonably injurious to the district in which it shall be located, because the proposed medical clinic would be surrounded by other B3 zoned properties and commercial uses. The use is of similar scale to the surrounding uses of restaurants, bars, and retail. Finally, the character of the B3 General Business zoning district would be preserved with the proposed use, because a medical use is consistent with the commercial nature of the B3 district. In summary, the development of the subject property with the proposed use of a medical clinic would be beneficial to the city and meet the criteria for a special use permit approval. The proposed clinic would be an infill development on a vacant property along a commercial corridor with high traffic volume. The clinic would provide an in-demand service of medical primary outpatient care that would be compatible with and complement the services of nearby businesses such as the pharmacy. The Plan Commission finally must make a recommendation to City Council for or against the proposed special use, and may also recommend such additional conditions and requirements as are appropriate or necessary to meet the public health, safety, and welfare, and to carry out the purposes of the zoning ordinance. And these findings are summarized in the staff report. And the options that the Plan Commission has in this case are to recommend approval without any additional conditions, to recommend approval of the special use permit with any conditions deemed appropriate or necessary, or to recommend denial of the special use permit. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission recommend approval of the special use permit in Plan Case 2341 SU 18 with the following condition: that the use generally conforms to the site plan submitted in this application as shown in Exhibit D, except where modified to meet city regulations. And
Great.
that's the end of the staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Mr. Pell?
I assume the Walgreens property is owned by, there's a different owner?
I presume so, yes.
Is there an access easement? What happens if Walgreens sells and says, don't use our parking lot to access your parking lot?
I will defer to the proposed buyer and also the attorney,
Okay.
Mr. Oswald and Mr. Joseph.
Okay. I'm going
If
to
the-
propose a similar question on the private drive. Whose private drive is it? And can they say, don't use my private drive?
The private drive is split ownership, so the current owner owns the western half of the private drive, and the eastern half is owned by the owner of Commerce
Okay.
Center.
Would the city require an access easement?
The city would require there to be recorded cross-access easements on both.
Would planning and
Directions.
engineering prefer that their access be off of the private drive and instead of through Walgreens? It seems to me they could move the dumpster and they have an ample width to access their property off the private drive and not cross up through Walgreens and gain 4 more parking spots.
Those options were given to the applicant, and this was the configuration that they requested. If you would like to direct those to the applicant, I will absolutely recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Ms. Billman?
On the map that you have up there right now,
Yes.
did you already mention what is the sort of rectangular thing? Yes, right there.
That's the existing monument sign that details the shops that are there in 5 Points Commerce Center. The medical clinic would also have an own individual ground monument sign at the southwest corner.
Well, I'm also concerned about using the Walgreens parking lot as an entry. My concern was more that that's already kind of a dicey entering and exit place. Cars get kind of backed up in there. There's just not much room to turn right or get out of there. I was wondering if the sign could be down by the Park Street up north.
This sign here, the ground monument sign,
Yeah, because to me, having the sign there kind of encourages them to go in right there.
understood.
Well, we could pursue that further in discussion or in questioning of the
I-
applicant.
I will say that this was reviewed at a joint meetings of community development and the engineering division. So Public Works has viewed the circulation and access and did not have any negative comments about that. But
Mr. Pell?
I sort of have a follow-up parking question.
Mhm.
City staff verify that I don't have the Walgreens layout in my head.
Right.
But it looks like we're taking 5 spots out of Walgreens. Are they still in compliance?
I had the initial question when this was brought up at our staff meeting. These spaces here, and there's probably 3, this already exists in this configuration with these 2 bulbs, and these spaces were never included with the parking space calculations for Walgreens. Currently, I think there's 2 large storage pods or semi-trailers parked there.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please, and if you could just,
Oh, I got a copy. Do you have it on the flash drive? And if you folks want to sign in while I'm... The life estate agreement?
No. Urbana presentation, sorry.
Okay,
Reciprocal easement agreement.
okay.
Go ahead and introduce that in the record. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, gentlemen, thank you. If you could just state your names and sign the roster there,
Sure.
that'd be great.
My name's Christopher Oswald. I'm the attorney for D. Joseph Sons and Associates, who's the purchaser under contract with the Tapman entity, the party that'd be developing this site. Seated to my left here is Brad Joseph. He's vice president of D. Joseph Sons and Associates. We're working to develop this site as it exists. I appreciate the comments that everybody's had. We think that this use is going to be developed as a, I don't think, we know this use will be developed as a urgent care / prompt care type clinic, walk-in outpatient type center. So if you get a cold and you don't want to wait a week to see your doctor, you'd go and see a primary care physician there and get treated. I think it'd be convenient with the Walgreens next door to then be able to pick up your prescriptions. As far as the configuration on the site plan, we've been working with staff over the last month and a half to address their concerns. I think we have addressed every concern that's come up, including the parking there in the front yard, the screening, and the circulation. The access dumpster is there, and somebody pointed out the access from the existing drive there. We had to put that dumpster in that location because dumpsters are not allowed in the front yard, and along Cunningham, those would be a front yard. That would be a front yard location. In terms of the access in the shopping center, I submit this for your record, and I'll make sure you have a copy of that that you can review. But this is a reciprocal easement agreement that exists on the shopping center. It governs the strip center, the Walgreens, and this lot. All three owners are party to this agreement. It provides for cross-access rights across their lots, the improved drives, and so forth within the shopping center. It's consistent with the original configuration for the shopping center where the entrance was at the Walgreens parking lot. With that, I don't know that I have anything more to add that hasn't already been stated here. We do think this would be a great addition to the city in this location. And unless Brad has additional comments, I think we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions for the petitioners? No? Mr. Trail?
So when you say an urgent care facility, you're assuming most people will be accessing this without appointments?
Correct.
How big's your waiting room?
Actually, the actual design is coming from our tenant, and we don't have the final space plan yet, but we've done a handful of these deals already. I'm trying to, I don't have the exact size of the waiting room right now. I can tell you these are not high traffic type uses. At the handful we've done already, I'm sure you guys have prom cares around town now. They're usually, during cold and flu season, there's a peak time, but other than that, it's, they're lucky to get 10 or 15 people a day. They're not a high volume type place. But we can certainly provide whatever you need in terms of getting the specific sizes for you.
The reason I ask is my brother happens to live next door to one, not in this area, he lives in another state. And his complaint is it's pretty episodic. 5 o'clock gets flocked. Don't get much during the day. It's, or significant events going on. And turns out in the town he lives in, they have an annual thing that tends to produce a number of inadvertent injuries. And the emergency room fills up, and next thing you know, I just, wondering, especially given its location right at one of the worst intersections in town, if anybody's
Sure.
looked at that sort of
Well,
thing.
let me distinguish between urgent care, because we see this more and more with development. Not necessarily here. I don't know if I've seen it in this area, but just sort of in our region, I have seen a increase in what we kind of view as emergency care or emergency room type facilities that spring up in these shopping centers that are separate and apart from a hospital. And I want to distinguish that this is not that type of a clinic. This is the more traditional prompt care clinic that you go to for a cold. And I understand that there can be volume issues with those from time to time. But the tenant believes, and we believe, that the parking volume here, it is code compliant, and we think that it would be sufficient for the typical traffic volumes you'd see there on a day-to-day basis.
So you're going to have signs telling people, do not park in the Walgreen parking lot, and Walgreen isn't going to be calling the city soon and towing people, or?
I'd be shocked if that happened, simply because Walgreens expected this lot to be developed someday, which is why they actually, on the site plan on Exhibit D, they've already planned for that curb cut. I think they'd much rather have a use like this versus a restaurant-type use going in that would dominate their parking lot, but we consider these type of uses low-volume uses and would be a good co-tenant next to these guys. And if anything, I think Walmart or Walgreens will be thrilled because their tickets are going to pick up dramatically. So we're going to need their approval on a couple issues, and we expect their cooperation. If anything, we think they're going to be very excited about this.
Great, thank you. Ms. Drago, did you have something?
Yeah, I had a concern. Already the northbound traffic on North Cunningham Avenue, there's a visibility issue with those small businesses back there in the complex, that L-shaped complex that's is seated
To the east?
east of your parcel or your future parcel, your future property. And some of those small businesses have paid for extra signage or invested in extra signage so that there can be some visibility, at least for the southbound traffic on Cunningham. And so is there a reason why it wouldn't be possible to have your structure be on the southwest corner of, or the southeast corner of the parcel instead of the northeast corner? Because between the crabapple and the trees there and the structure, you would be concealing the visibility of those small businesses from that major Cunningham Avenue, which, you know, southbound is the only sort of visibility they get anymore these days. The northbound don't see any of those businesses, so.
When you say southeast, are you talking about like towards the corner on the bottom left?
Right here.
The bottom right-hand
right.
corner.
Bottom right, I'm sorry.
I assume you wanted your structure to sort of stay perpendicular with the nice 90-degree angles of the parcel. So, but is there any other sort of arrangement that you feel is possible to not completely conceal the visibility of that shopping complex and those small businesses?
No, that's a good thought, and we really didn't plan, you know, based upon what was behind us, because it is an L. So if we slide it down to the southeast, we're still going to be blocking one of the other tenants. So the question becomes, I guess, does, one tenant, is it worth protecting one tenant over another? As my question. I know the tenant was pretty specific on what they needed, and we tried to lay this out the best we could with staff and our engineers, but we really didn't take into consideration which tenant, would be affected. We figured the original owner of this, who set it up, kind of had that in mind, that this was going to be developed someday, and
Sure.
and hopefully he shared that with his tenants when he developed this, because on centers that we have outlots on, we always show site plans without parcels.
And certainly the reciprocal easement agreement contemplates this lot being developed. And in fact contemplates that sign in it'd be the northwest corner of this lot, which all the tenants in the L-shaped center have their signs on that lot for the purpose of visibility. And also you see and it was pointed out by staff, this dotted line here along it's just left of center on the property that goes diagonally back from Walgreens to Park Street. That is a visibility line that's dealt with in the reciprocal easement agreement that I'd shown earlier, and that was from Walgreens primarily. I mean, they're concerned about their visibility along Cunningham. So to the extent that when the lots were laid out and there were concerns about visibility, these are the primary concerns that got laid out. This development complies with that, and seems to be, generally situated in a way that would conform to the original shopping center layout.
Great. Mr. Turner?
I was just curious about, would this medical clinic be related to any currently existing clinics in Champaign-Urbana? One. And have you done anything to determine whether or not an additional clinic is needed based on demand of other clinics in the area and capacity and such?
The first part of your question is, they haven't given us the authority to actually disclose their name because they're trying to stay somewhat under the radar before they open. We were going to ask their permission to actually disclose it as soon as we can.
And we have, but we're still working on that, so.
We know you'll be happy with the name when we disclose it, but
Is there a reason for that?
No,
Okay.
there's no particular reason other than, at this time, they're just not ready to speak publicly about it. They probably will be in the near future.
and they're going to open up several across certain areas at once, and they didn't want other competitors knowing their strategy. That's all. Secondly, they do their own research, as most national tenants kind of do, studying the market, seeing who's here, and they felt that there was a need for one in Urbana. So they came to us and told us that we need to be here. They pinpointed kind of the actual intersection that this would be a home run for us at this location. So they do their own homework on that.
Mr. Fell?
Can I ask city staff a question?
Sure.
Okay. Are all these parcels subject to the collective parking agreement? Since they're all basically access easements together, which would alleviate any parking issues we have, theoretically.
I am not aware if there is a shared parking agreement. Again, I would defer to Mr. Oswald or Mr. Joseph about that. It might be part of this reciprocal agreement with the access easements.
If I remember right, I think the easement agreement is simply access. Each of the lots is supposed to be self-parked.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And just, you have to answer this for my own curiosity. Why are you going across Walgreens property when you don't have to?
Well, this was the layout of the center that sort of predated our involvement, so we're just sort of adding on where they intended the access originally to be. Also, there are some challenges in fitting the building and the parking into this lot without running afoul of the code requirements, for instance.
Can't you access it directly off of the private drive? You have plenty of width, and you can
Sure.
slide the dumpster south, and then you put in less curb, you don't put two islands in, you save money, and you get more parking.
You could, but I think you run the risk of causing a further bottleneck on this, because currently you have two means of ingress and egress, one from Park Street on the private drive and one on Cunningham from the Walgreens parking lot that could serve as an egress point. And so if there were congestion off the private drive entrance, somebody could still exit to the south out toward Walgreens, whereas if our drive were only there on the east, all the cars would have to pass together there. The flow, I think, works better like this. Also, the dumpster location is trickier than it looks with that, because you do have to have sufficient room for the truck to turn around in the parking lot. And as it's currently configured, there is sufficient room for that. But it would be difficult to meet the code standards without encroaching further into a required yard if we did it another way.
Anything
Okay.
further? Any other questions? Mr. Turner?
I just wanted to ask as well. You alluded to the fact this wouldn't be a shopping mall healthcare type of facility, and
Right.
you also alluded to the fact this is a national chain, or at least have some national,
Say more of a regional.
regional. Okay. Does the client, have they thought about access to the healthcare facilities? And I'm thinking families from lower income. Is this something that will be accessible to the entire community, or is this facility going to exclude based on cost?
I think it should generally be accessible, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we told too much about their policy, we'd probably be able to figure out who they were. These guys don't turn anybody away. That's probably the best I could say. It's going to be available to everyone.
Any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't think we have any public input, so now we will actually discuss this and deliberate and possibly vote. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion? Thoughts? Ms. Billman?
Hi, these are questions for staff. I need to have it clear, if we approve this, will the special use permit also go on to the next owner, another different owner or a different tenant? Will the site plan, does it have to be the same site plan? Could they change the site plan if there's another at some point?
The special use permit would carry through with the land to future owners. They would have to generally conform with the site plan that was submitted with this special use permit. If they wanted to vary significantly from that, then the special use permit would not be valid for that, and they would have to come get their own special use permit with their own site plan.
Okay, so should we not consider how we think that the current tenant might deal with things? I mean, is that not a consideration? You know, I mean, asking, will they turn away clients? Should that not be a consideration? Because it could
This is a planning case. I don't think the way they conduct their business is really for us.
Yeah.
Now, the city council could certainly consider something like that.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, I don't think that's for us. Any further discussion?
I think a little bit about their business is an issue, because if their intent is to say serve low-income community, this is one of the least pedestrian accessible areas they could probably have put it. So at least from a community standpoint, it may cut off potentially one of the client bases that the community might most want served by such a facility.
Well, it's not going to be pedestrian friendly. I certainly agree with that. This is one of the
It's
worst
about as pedestrian friendly as you
yeah,
get.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Any further discussion? We had a lot of questions about the traffic circulation, and I did too. And I went over there, and in fact, I ran back again before the meeting to kind of look it over. And I like the two ways in and out. And so even when I go to Walgreens, I go out the private drive and curl back around, so that I don't have to try to take a left. You can't do that. You can't. And so what I was really concerned about, the exit from Walgreens needs to be far enough away from the entrance to this property that it doesn't create the backup that you were talking about. And when I went back and looked at that, I was satisfied that it is far enough away. Now, it still doesn't stop somebody from getting hit just pulling in, even if you're going to Walgreens or wherever you're going, by somebody coming out and trying to take a left. One of the questions I had, there's also the pharmacy traffic that's curling around from the back of Walgreens and coming out that same way. So there could be problems. One of the things I thought of, which I don't know if we can require this or not, or suggest it and maybe get city staff's thoughts, is a stop sign at the southeast corner on the private drive, and to request very politely for Walgreens to put up a stop sign at would be the northwest exit from their parking lot. They need one of those there anyway, in my opinion. But sure, I'm directionally challenged, so.
Let me maybe go to, so you said southeast.
So
corner.
right there where the private drive would be approaching Walgreens.
So about here where the hand is, or am I,
Yes.
okay. And then what was the other one?
The other one would be yes, and then only at the corner of Walgreens,
So, but not here?
not there.
South of where you were.
Yes, yeah.
If
No.
you just put it over that corner of the structure?
Yeah,
there?
right.
Yeah.
The other corner,
Sorry.
that one,
Okay.
right
thank
there.
you.
So that's where the bottleneck really happens, is right there. And it's when people try to take a left to get out of there, while other people on a short turn are trying to come in. If if Walgreens had a stop sign there, and somebody put a stop sign there at that other corner on the private drive, I think that would, if people actually stopped.
I would say that the special use permit can only impact the subject property.
I get that, yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to just ask Walgreens if they would be willing to do it. I think that I would propose that we require a stop sign where we can. Doesn't sound like, it sounds like they've been through a lot of discussion with various people, and this curb cut is already here. So that's what the lot's designed, that's where it's designed to be entered. I don't think it's ideal. I mean, I think you hit on a lot, but I don't know. Interested in your thoughts on that kind of an approach. Stunned silence.
Before you consider that too specifically, there might be things in the cross-access easement that might prohibit that. So you may want to consider softer language about examining access management or something like that, just so that we don't run afoul of requiring things that are impossible to require.
Good point.
I kind
Mr.
of
Feld.
also feel that we've dealt with similar situations a couple times, and one of the problems is if we have a stop sign coming south on the private drive and not one going north, the people going south think the people going north are going to
gonna
stop.
stop.
And they're not. So it just,
Yeah,
sometimes
I-
it just
I
creates
hear
more
that, yeah.
problems than it solves.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe something more general is the way to go. Well, anybody else have any other concerns about this? I thought your point about the visibility was a good one. It sounds like they already have considered it.
Sort of,
There you are.
I can't believe I'm advocating against trees, but, with the northeastern structure and then the trees, and the fact that that sign for the business complex is actually pretty small, can't really, if you're coming south on Cunningham, you're not really going to see the sign very well. In the past, I just feel that actually seeing the complex has been better than that small sign right there. And so I guess I still wish that structure was in the southeast corner of that parcel on the site plans. Still.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm
Mr. Fell?
going to comment slightly on that, is that, while I don't disagree with that, I think the issue of site access to the strip mall, we'll call it, isn't this petitioner's problem, it's the strip mall's problem. Because when they built that, this outlot was already there, and they knew what could happen there. So if they could have
true.
positioned their building differently. So it's not this petitioner's fault that this building is going to get their visual access blocked.
That is
So
a
we
very
can't,
good
we
point.
can't hold that against the petitioner, I don't think. So,
Anything further on that or other issues? All right, well, let's say we were to entertain a motion and with some kind of language about traffic circulation, traffic management. Do we want to put that in there? Do we want to just let the fact that we've sort of noted it in the record, that we have concerns? Mr. Fell?
my opinion is it's been noted in the record that we have concerns, and it certainly appears that the petitioner and city staff and engineering have gone over this multiple times, so I'm not sure we need to mess up that water anymore.
I like the way you put it, yeah. Okay. All right, well, if there's nothing else, then we probably can get to the motion part of the evening. if somebody wishes to do so. Mr. Fell? Mr. Trail? Mr.
I was just going to make one last comment.
Okay.
I don't disagree with all these things. But I sort of look at this area as just irredeemable. I mean, the little bit of, well, I mean, the traffic's, this is just, it's a horrible area. It's the development and, I mean, even just trying to figure out how to get from, even if you want to park at one of the businesses across the street, you can't figure out how to get into their parking lot half the time. I mean, it's just, this whole area is just such a mess, whatever tiny little,
I go in there all the
Thing.
time, so that's why I go in and out the back way.
that, whatever tiny little, you know, not that I still believe that this use is particularly well cited in this location, but in terms
Well,
of
yeah.
the, you know, nitpicking over, we put a
Yeah,
stop
no,
sign
that's-
somewhere, it'll solve the problems of the area. I don't think it will.
Okay. Mr. Fell, will you? You reached for your button. Oh, you're turning it off. Oh. Okay.
I'll go ahead and make a
Mr.
motion.
Turner.
I'd like to move that we approve the proposed special use permit in plan case number 2341-SU18 for the reasons articulated in the memo with the following condition. The use generally conforms to the site plan submitted in the application as shown in Exhibit D, except where modified to meet city regulations.
Motion by Mr. Turner. Seconded by Mr. Fell. Further discussion on the motion? No? In that case, if we could have a roll call vote whenever you're ready.
Ms. Spillman?
Yes.
Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Ms. Swadrago?
Yes.
Mr. Trail? Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Yu?
Yes.
That motion passes. And do we have a expected date for the city council to consider this?
Yes, we do. It is April 16th, if that's a Monday. Yes, that sounds right. Sorry.
On or about April 16th. All right, thank you. We don't have any new business. We don't have any audience participation. Is there a staff report? No staff report. We don't have a study session. Therefore, this meeting is adjourned.